Pompeii, the city that slept beneath the ashes. 2,000 years ago, on the sunny shores of southern Italy, a Roman city thrived, a place of color, noise, and life. Its name was Pompeii. It rested just a short distance from the glittering waters of the Bay of Naples, where the salty breeze carried the scent of the sea through the streets. Around it stretched fertile farmland dotted with orchards, olive groves, and vineyards. Rising above it all was a mountain the people called Vesuvius. Vesuvius was not feared. Its slopes were green with crops and forests, its summit often shrouded in soft white clouds. Generations had come and gone without seeing it erupt. To the people of Pompeii, it was simply part of the scenery, a silent guardian standing watch over their prosperous home. Pompeii was a bustling city of perhaps 20,000 souls. The streets were paved with large blocks of volcanic stone, worn smooth in places by the steady passage of carts and chariots. Deep grooves carved into the stones showed where wagon wheels had passed for decades. Each street was flanked by raised sidewalks to keep pedestrians dry when the rains came. Stepping stones stood in rows across the streets, so citizens could cross without soaking their sandals. The marketplace, the forum, was the heart of the city. Here under the colonnades, merchants shouted out prices while customers examined goods. Farmers arrived from the countryside with baskets brimming with fresh produce, shiny green olives, plump grapes heavy with juice, figs as sweet as honey, and vegetables of every shape and color. Fishermen unloaded their morning catch, silver-scaled fish, octopus, and clams, their boats rocking gently in the nearby harbor. Bakers worked before dawn, sliding round loaves into their stone ovens. By midday, the smell of fresh bread and sweet pastries mingled with the scent of roasting meat and herbs. Pompeii's homes reflected the wide range of wealth among its citizens. The poor lived in small apartments above shops, with narrow rooms and few windows. The wealthy lived in spacious villas, where sunlight poured into open courtyards called atriums. These courtyards often held fountains that splashed gently into stone basins, surrounded by flowers in carefully tended gardens. The walls of these homes were painted with frescoes, vivid images of gods, heroes, and idyllic landscapes, as well as scenes from everyday life, banquets, musicians, dancers, and even portraits of the homeowners themselves. Floors were laid with mosaics, thousands of tiny colored tiles, arranged into patterns or pictures so detailed you could see the muscles on a running dog or the ripples on a pond. Life in Pompeii was as varied as its people. The amphitheater could hold thousands, and it rang with the roar of the crowd during gladiator games. Plays were staged in the theater, where actors in masks performed tragedies and comedies under the open sky. The public baths were an essential part of daily life, not just for washing, but for meeting friends, making business deals, or simply relaxing in the warm and cool pools. Inns and taverns served wine made from grapes grown in the dark, mineral-rich soil left by ancient eruptions. Streets buzzed with voices in Latin, Greek, and other languages from traders who came from across the Roman Empire. All this prosperity was tied to the land and to Mount Vesuvius itself. Long ago, its eruptions had poured out ash and lava, which over time had broken down into soil of incredible fertility. Farmers could coax extraordinary harvests from the earth. The people of Pompeii saw the mountain as a giver of life. They did not know it was also capable of sudden death. In the summer of 79 AD, subtle signs began to appear. In the days before disaster struck, small earthquakes rattled the city. But earthquakes were not rare in this region, and the people had grown used to them. Merchants still opened their stalls. Bakers still prepared their bread. The amphitheater still filled with noise. There was no reason, they thought, to be alarmed. Then on the morning of August 24th, the ground shook harder than before. Just before midday, the mountain roared. A sound like the tearing of the earth itself echoed across the bay. People turned toward Vesuvius and saw a sight no one could have imagined. From its summit, a column of ash, pumice, and smoke exploded upward, rising into the clear blue sky. The column twisted and spread, forming a massive dark cloud shaped like a pine tree, its trunk anchored to the mountain and its top flattening out high above. The earth trembled again. Stones began to fall from the sky. At first they were small, no larger than pebbles, but soon they grew to the size of fists. Roof tiles shattered under the impact. People shouted to each other, unsure whether to stay inside or run. The sky darkened as daylight dimmed. Ash began to fall, soft and gray, coating hair, clothing, and streets. It came down faster and thicker, filling the air with choking dust. Some tried to flee toward the countryside, holding cloth over their mouths. Others sought refuge in their homes, shuttering windows and doors against the falling debris. Hour after hour, the eruption continued. The air grew heavy with ash, and the ground was covered in drifts that reached up to the knees. Roofs sagged under the weight. Fires broke out where hot stones struck. In the streets, the sound of coughing and shouting mixed with the constant hiss and crackle of the falling material. By night, the city lay in darkness, lit only by the red glow from the mountain and the brief flashes of lightning that flickered within the volcanic cloud. For many, escape was impossible. The roads were blocked, the harbor choked with debris. Still, some clung to hope that the storm would end. But at dawn, the deadliest force arrived, the pyroclastic surge. It came without warning. A wall of burning gas, ash, and pulverized rock rushing down the slopes faster than any horse could run. The heat was beyond imagining, hot enough to kill in an instant. It swept through the city, over walls and through doorways, filling every space with suffocating ash. Those caught in its path had no time to cry out. By the end of the second day, Pompeii was gone. Buried under several meters of volcanic material, it disappeared from sight. The coastline had changed, the harbor gone. Silence returned to the land, broken only by the wind. Over time, grass grew over the ash, and new generations built farms and villages nearby, unaware of what lay beneath their feet. For nearly 17 centuries, Pompeii lay hidden. Then, in 1748, excavations began. At first, the work was slow and clumsy, but as the ruins emerged, the world realized what had been preserved. Entire buildings still stood, their walls painted, their floors intact. Counters in taverns still had their storage jars. In bakeries, mills and ovens waited as if for the next day's bread. Most haunting of all were the voids in the hardened ash where bodies had once been. Archaeologists poured plaster into these spaces, creating detailed casts of the people of Pompeii in their final moments. A man shielding his face, a woman curled protectively over her child, a dog straining against its chain. Even the folds of clothing and the expressions on their faces were preserved. Today, Pompeii is a place where past and present meet. Visitors walk its ancient streets, stepping over the same worn stones the Romans walked. They stand in the shadow of the amphitheater, look into the courtyards of grand villas, and peer into kitchens where meals were once prepared. It is a city frozen in its last day, a moment of life interrupted and preserved for 2,000 years. The story of Pompeii is one of beauty and tragedy. It is a reminder that nature can give and take away, that life is fragile, and that history sometimes waits in silence to be discovered. And as long as Mount Vesuvius towers over the Bay of Naples, its quiet slopes hiding the fire within, the lesson of Pompeii remains. The mountain